Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Here's what's making news right now.
At this point in time, we believe he acted alone. There's no other shooters, there's no other gunmen. We don't believe anybody at this point in time, pending further investigation, that he planned this with anybody else.
There is no food whatsoever. They burned all the food that they had reserved, and then now, starvation is used as a mechanism of war.
We're gonna all head there, gather in one car and grab some pizza, go to some bars, maybe see if there's any concerts going on.
Thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with tragic news across the border in Michigan. A school shooting has claimed the lives of 3 students. 6 people are wounded, including a teacher. Details are still emerging, but the attack occurred at Oxford High School in Oxford Township, a community of about 22,000 people, and that's about 48 kilometers north of Detroit. Police say a 15-year-old student is in custody.
He fired multiple shots, I can tell you that. We've recovered multiple shell casings in the school. Somewhere in the area, obviously, with that many people shot, we're thinking, 15 to 20 shots that were fired.
Officers responded around 1 p.m. to a flood of 911 calls about an active shooter at the school. Police arrested the suspect at the school and recovered a semi-automatic handgun and several clips. Authorities say the student was a sophomore at the high school. They believe he acted alone, but the motive remains unclear. And we'll have more updates on this on our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. Turning now to national news here at home. In the last couple hours, federal officials have announced new measures to try to curb the spread of the Omicron variant in Canada. It involves bringing back COVID testing for all incoming air travelers from all countries except for the United States, and an expanded travel ban. All foreign nationals who have traveled through Nigeria, Malawi, and Egypt in the last 14 days are now barred from entering Canada. That's in addition to 7 other countries in southern Africa named last Friday. The health minister outlined the additional testing today.
All air travelers coming from outside Canada, apart from the United States, will now need to be tested at the airport in which they are landing in Canada, whether they are vaccinated or unvaccinated. They will then need to isolate themselves until they get the result of their test.
Now, these latest requirements do not change anything at the U.S.-Canada land border, for now, that is. Now, this latest tightening of restrictions comes at the same time as some relief kicks in for those crossing by land, something many Windsorites have been looking forward to for months. Fully vaccinated Canadians traveling across the land border and staying for less than 72 hours no longer have to show proof of a negative COVID-19 test. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa has more.
Going to Pizzapopolis, getting some pizza.
For 20 months, that's all Baumeister has dreamed of. Well, that and cheaper groceries and gas. Without family or friends across the river, Baumeister's relationship with Detroit has always been purely social and consumerist. And it's clear he's excited for this weekend's reunion.
I'm just excited to see the people. I'm excited to see the Detroiters again. I'm excited to hit up some concerts. I'm excited to watch the Lions lose. And yeah, it's just exciting.
The border officially reopened for non-essential travel on November 8th, but at the time, fully vaccinated Canadians coming back into Canada had to show proof of a negative COVID-19 test. Today, that testing requirement has been removed for trips less than 72 hours. But public health measures are still so different over there than they are here. So how concerned should you be when popping over?
If COVID is the risk that you're most concerned with, it is higher risk to be in the United States than it is to stay in Canada, clearly. But it really depends on what you're doing when you get here. There are still a lot of unvaccinated people in the state of Michigan and around the United States. And I think crowded indoor venues are going to be very high risk, including indoor dining, including bars, including restaurants. And the way to decrease your risk, besides being vaccinated, is to wear a mask in those spaces.
To give you a taste of what some of those venues look like, here's a scene from University of Michigan's Saturday football game. Lots of people in close quarters, unmasked, not physically distanced. One professor says Americans have had a political pandemic, which has influenced their behavior.
American society is really, really polarized, and there's the freedom aspect of it, right? And the individualism. And I do think there's a little more a little more collective awareness here. There was a lot of agreement, even amongst people who wouldn't normally agree federally and provincially, about how to stop this and how can we work together to stop it.
And while Baumeister is aware of the COVID-19 situation in Michigan, he says he plans on taking all the precautions necessary to stay safe while getting back to the places he's missed out on for so long. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Also beginning today, unvaccinated travelers over the age of 12 won't be able to board a plane or passenger train in Canada. A negative COVID-19 test will no longer serve as a substitute for most people. The policy came into effect on October 30th, but a short transition period was put in place that allowed unvaccinated travelers to board as long as they provided a negative COVID-19 test taken within 72 hours before their trip. Amid a brutal year in Windsor for unemployment and the skyrocketing cost of housing, a new report shows there are more people who are now homeless. The CBC's Chris Ensing joins us live now in studio. Chris, what stands out in this report?
Yeah, Kat, not only does the report say that more people are homeless in Windsor, but there's more people who are experiencing chronic homelessness. So that's 6 months or more without stable housing. Now, this is all compared to 2018. That's the last time that Windsor did a point-in-time count. That's when staff and volunteers canvass the city and interview people who don't have permanent housing. Here's the major changes. Significant increases in the number of people who are homeless. It's up 27% this year. And there's more people who are now homeless for longer periods of time. That's up by 25%. That's chronic homelessness. And the average length of someone who's in that situation, it's now 300 days. Now, one stat that hasn't changed is the percentage of people who are homeless and identify as Indigenous. More than a fifth of the people surveyed, which is a massive overrepresentation compared to Windsor's population.
Now, Chris, any idea why that specific number hasn't changed?
I spoke with the head of a local nonprofit Indigenous Housing Corporation to hear more about the why. Eric Hill and others I spoke with about this report, they told me that a big part is housing supply, not enough affordable housing options for people who are trying to scrape together money for a place to live. I asked Hill if there's other barriers, though, that Indigenous people looking for housing might face.
You're likely to have, I don't want to say it definitively, but you're likely to have a mistrust of, mainstream services. And that's echoes of things like the 60s scoop and all the things of systemic racism that, many of the times the sports that are meant or designed to help people, you're not going to, if you've been a victim of that system or, targeted by that system, you're not likely to engage or come forward and try to access those services.
That's where you see when you talk about more supports for Indigenous-led programs or Indigenous-led outreach, that's where you see that success coming from. That is that trust that's built there. Yeah, because you're dealing with somebody from your own community and, maybe tied into, all these other services. I mean, where we're trying to do prevention, we're trying to prevent these things from happening.
Now, one example he told me of was a program at the Can-Am Friendship Center, a housing advocate who works specifically with Indigenous people. That's a support that he says is an example of a good way to combat the numbers in this report. Now, this report will go to a committee that advises Windsor Council tomorrow morning. City staff say the council needs to lobby upper levels of government for more money, and they're also calling on the federal and provincial governments to acknowledge homelessness as a crisis. Kat.
Thanks for this, Chris. The CBC's Chris Ensing, live tonight. A Windsor man has been cut off from his family in the Tigray region of Ethiopia because of the escalating military conflict there. Just last week, Canada urged citizens to leave Ethiopia immediately. The country declared a state of emergency earlier this month, a year after the conflict between the federal government and the forces aligned with the Tigray People's Liberation Front first erupted. I spoke with Mulgera Tedla. His father died a month ago, and he's been unable to reach his mother or his siblings.
Tigray is under siege. There is no food, no medication, no cash flow, no commodities going. It's isolated for about 12 months. So my dad used to take insulin and other medications. So there is no access to that. Unfortunately, it's not only my dad, it's also other community members of my community in Windsor are being told that their relatives are passing because of lack of dialysis lack of important medications to maintain. And I didn't have a chance even to say my condolences to my mom about the loss of my dad. And because the phones have been blocked for so long, and there is no way for me to communicate so far. It is very painful. I mean, my dad is elderly. It's not like there could be other factors. You know what I mean? I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is the chance, I didn't get a chance to support my mother. I want to send her money. I want to support her, and I want to also, support her morally. And I was so disappointed, so depressed about it. My children never had a chance to call my mom. Still, it's been like for a year. There was a couple months that they opened the phones, but it disappeared immediately. Now it's on our 4th month that there is no communication whatsoever. And there are so many people who I have relatives in the capital city. Even the Canadian government knows this. They are arresting like door to door by checking their names on the ID. If they are from Tigray, they are entitled to be in prison. So the suffering is tremendous. At least Canadian government can help those Tigrayans by giving a special consideration for asylum seeking for refugees.
Turning back now to the latest on COVID-19 in our region. Our case counts here in Windsor, Essex, they continue to trend upwards. Today, the local health unit reported 85 new cases. That pushes the number of active cases in the community up to 533. Currently, there are 23 people in the hospital with COVID-19. The former Harrow High School is getting new life, and the community is rejoicing. The town of Essex has purchased the property, both the building and green space, and one of the leaders who pushed for this to happen hopes to see it become a community hub.
I've been getting messages from people that want to rent space, want to start getting in the gym, and I'm like, whoa, we're not there yet, right? It's definitely not a turnkey building, but with a little bit of elbow grease, and maybe, if council wants to in the future, we can have a community hub, which is something I think would heal our community, right? The hamlet or the area of Harrow and Colchester, we're still really hurt that our school is closed. This purchase has really been a breath of fresh air in our town when we needed it the most.
The students that would have gone to that school now have to go outside of Harrow for classes. The town of Essex bought the property for about $850,000, and the deal closes on Friday. As for what now, Bondi says during budget talks, council will consider $60,000 to hire an engineer to look at the building, see what it needs, and figure out next steps. Live look outside there. Looks like we've got some more snow on the way. It'll either be some flurries or possibly some showers. Tomorrow, a mix of sun and clouds. And Colette Kennedy will be with us after the break, and she will have your full weather forecast in just a sec. Barbados has become the world's youngest republic today after it shed a defining marker of its colonial past.
Godspeed, Barbados. May your journey be long, fruitful, and bright, and may your sons and daughters all flourish.
Governor General Sandra Mason was sworn in as the Caribbean island nation's first ever president. Several dignitaries, including Prince Charles and pop star Rihanna, attended the ceremony that began last night. Charles spoke about the continuing friendship between the two nations despite the change in constitutional status. Barbados will retain its flag, coat of arms, and national anthem, but will stop pledging allegiance to Queen Elizabeth starting today. It plans to remain a republic within the Commonwealth realm, which Canada is also a member of. Colette Kennedy joins us now for a look at our weather forecast. Colette, I took a little peek. It looks like it's kind of a toss-up tonight, showers or flurries. What do you think?
Yeah, really, really light in nature in terms of what we're seeing, though. A lot of it just kind of to the north of us. But you're right, because of our temperatures kind of hovering here just above freezing and spending much of the overnight hours at that level. You can see where some of the heat is. I call it heat because it's all relative. 8 degrees in Chicago. They've doubled our number right now in Windsor, sitting at 4 degrees. And much colder air to the north. So as this next system that's popping in, it is tracking more northerly. Northeastern Ontario will get into some snowfall, significant accumulations, 5 to 10 centimeters or more. And we get into just a few little pops of some kind of a mixed wet flurries with sprinkles or drizzle, you would call it. So there's your current readings, even Sarnia at 2 and London above freezing at 1 degree. Much of it here to the north and to the northeast of us coming across the lake as the winds are increasing. And we are going to see those winds getting a little stronger tomorrow, turning much more southerly, south to southwest, and a bit gusty at times. So there's some of the action. We still have some of the cloud cover and that kind of drizzly stuff. And then looking at tomorrow, we may just start off with a little bit of sun with that cloud and a pretty good start to the day. And then we're going to see the system getting in here. So the clouds will be increasing, that cloud deck will get thicker. And then it's pretty isolated in terms of the showers, at least for the Windsor area. Better chance from Sarnia stretching over towards London and along the north shore of Lake Erie here, where you'll likely get a bit of a passing kind of sprinkle. I want you to take note of Thursday, because before that cold front can go through, our temperature is going to be rising with that southerly flow, and we'll get a period there with a bit of clearing, so some sun, and although a bit breezy, some milder temperatures. It'll be short-lived, but it's going to feel pretty good, I think. It's not going to be as nice into eastern Ontario and central Ontario, but here in southwestern Ontario, I think this area is going to do pretty well there into Thursday. Wind chill overnight tonight, -5. Look out for some patchy fog, so some reduced visibility early tomorrow morning before we get rid of that. Some sun in the morning, and then those clouds getting thicker. Watching that temperature going up for us, and so mild tomorrow. I mean, a little above seasonal, but there's that day Thursday I'm talking about at 10 degrees. And by the way, Katerina, I'll just leave you with watching a system for late in the weekend, like Sunday into Monday.
Okay.
That one could be kind of interesting. It's looking like it might be strong. So.
Okay, we know you'll keep us posted again tomorrow on how that's looking. Thanks so much for this, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, there are efforts to try and avoid a global shortage of maple syrup. So we check in with a local farm to find out what's going on right here. Stay with us. Quebec is helping the world steer clear of a sticky situation by tapping into a strategic reserve that will help steady the market, the maple syrup market, that is. The organization, the Quebec Maple Syrup Producers, has announced it's releasing half of its stored supply to avoid a global shortage. But what about here? We visited a maple syrup farm in Lakeshore to find out.
Goes into the whitewood, you just tap it in. And tap it in. So far for us, we're lucky because we kind of tap our trees. We follow the southern climate that we have. So like in Ohio and Indiana, they tap in January sometimes. We typically tap our trees somewhere around Valentine's Day, middle of February. So we get the early thaw right away. But what happened this year and what they're calling for again this year is a whiplash effect with the weather. So it's going to get really, really cold and then hot. It's okay if it comes back to cold right away, but if it stays warm, the trees start running, and then it's an earlier season, and it runs really fast, and when the trees bud, it's finished. And when COVID hit, we basically got shut down, and we thought, what are we going to do with all our syrup now? We can't sell it. So we decided to do a little soft opening last year, and just in October of this year, the mayor came and opened it with us, and now we have a retail store right here at the Sugar Shack in Ruscombe. Well, we purchased this professional maple evaporator from CDL in Quebec, right from the Beauce. All our stuff is from the Beauce, where all the pros are. We've had some pros come down and assist us with setting everything up and getting going. We were boiling outside at first, so to increase production, we went into this. Where at times, boiling outside, we're boiling 16, 17 hours a day. With this machine, we can boil 10 gallons an hour, so we can boil for 10 hours and get double the production that we had in our old style boiling. We're just a tiny, tiny, tiny little speck of the maple industry here. So where it's going to go is going to be weather related. With the climate change, it might be difficult. They're talking about, not in the next 10 years or so, but maybe shortly after. We don't know where it's going to end up, because if the weather does warm up really, really quick, we're only going to have short seasons. So we have to learn to adapt with the weather, and that's what we're doing now.
Congratulations and all the best on your new home.
A Windsor woman and her son are the proud owners of a Habitat for Humanity home in Windsor. They were handed the keys to the home on Bruce Avenue today. The house was originally built as a Habitat for Humanity Jimmy Carter work project back in 2005. Carter himself pounded a few nails in 10 homes in the area. The original owner sold the home back to Habitat, and then it was renovated. Marcy Smith-Harris now has an interest-free mortgage on the home. The payments are geared to income, and the price is based on appraised market value. She expressed her gratitude in an emotional speech to the volunteers and those who helped renovate the home.
At 14, I became pregnant with Donovan and made a promise to do the best I could and to provide and to never stop trying. I began saving for our first home in 2014. I was new into my career and barely making ends meet, but I had a goal. And as soon as I started saving, my living situation was no longer secure. I moved into our temporary home, and I call it that because we didn't belong there. I cried moving in because I felt as if I was failing him.
She and 15-year-old Donovan cut the ribbon on the home along with Mayor Drew Dilkins. Even though she had her son when she was a teenager, she managed to complete her high school and post-secondary education. She had saved up money for a home, but she had to rely on those savings when her son was diagnosed with cancer when he was a toddler. Habitat for Humanity will hand the keys to the homes to 3 more families before Christmas. A golden pheasant from New Brunswick has flown the coop, and his owner is hoping for a safe return. He's been missing for a few weeks, but recently has been spotted on social media.
It was about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. We looked and he wasn't there. And it went on. We thought he was gone. We really did. We thought something had eaten him.
What was your reaction when he popped up on Facebook?
I was quite shocked. My daughter actually sent me a picture of him and she said, "That looks like Winston." And I said, "It probably is Winston."
And where was he when he popped up on Facebook?
He was just outside of Shediac on a little road called Glassby, and there's an old folks home there. So the old folks have been enjoying him, I think. There must have been a hole in the pen that we haven't noticed. Now we've shored up his pen again now. So we'd like him back so he can enjoy his pen.
And he has a friend here who's missing him.
Yes, he does. He has a mate. He has a mate, it's a red pheasant, and she's missing him a great deal. If you attempt to catch him, you have to use either a fishing net or a light blanket from a bed. And you have to be super gentle because his little legs and his little wings will break like crazy. But it can be done. That's how we catch him. We catch him with a fishing net.
How long has he been on the run now?
It is about 2.5, 3 weeks that he's been on the lam.
The bird is on the lam.
Yes, the bird is on the lam.
The bird is on the lam, but we are wishing Winston a safe return home. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. And you can, of course, find us on social media as well. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Have a great night.